Blind City. Yeah.
Track killer.
The legend.
Yeah. A lot of history behind this.
Ramrilla.
Yeah. I'm trying to reach out and connect with the youth. These rappers out here, they ain't telling the truth. God ain't blessing the trap, it's just a trap. So the blessing in that is zero. I'm the proof, so I'm blessing the booth.
Welcome to Blind City.
I'm Langford Cunningham. I lost my sight, and God gave me a vision to create a platform to help other people see their vision. Real life, real situations, real people. Today I have a special guest. She goes by the name Woman of Faith, and she's on the front lines, in the streets, saving souls of women whose souls have been kidnapped and used as sex slaves. Welcome to Blind City. We'll be right back.
It took him losing his sight to find his vision. Real life, real situations, real people. This is Blind City with your host, Langford Cunningham.
Welcome back to Blind City. I'm Langford Cunningham. I have a very special guest. She will be known as the Woman of Faith. She's known for putting her faith on the front lines in these streets to help young women escape from being sex slaves, human trafficking. Missouri is number 16 out of 50 states that deal with human trafficking. So we're going to get right into this interview. How you doing, Woman of Faith?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great because I'm ready to take on this topic.
All right, let's go.
What is sex trafficking, human trafficking?
Unfortunately, there is a wide variety of sex trafficking going on. People think of the sex clubs, they think of the prostitutes on the corners, but unfortunately it goes as far as pornography and labor and various other aspects of it. But pornography is a big problem. A lot of these women are brought into circumstances. There are videos that are going viral on the dark web. There's a number of hits on these videos that are on the dark web that are keeping the generation of these videos going. If there wasn't a demand for the videos, there wouldn't be anybody out there pushing for more fresh videos to come.
Pornography is big time. It's on the web, Backpage, Facebook, Instagram. These girls are merchandise.
Unfortunately, where there's a will, there's a way. And as long as the demand is there, they're going to find a way to get it out to the people. The ones who are purchasing it, the ones that are seeking out the pornography, if we can shut a lot of that down, then obviously there won't be such a demand. These women are put up on altars and slabs with performances behind these videos that create this atmosphere that is both menacing and exciting at the same time for these men and women who are watching the videos. These videos are incredibly sadistic. They are so sadistic. One young woman told me of a circumstance she was put in where they walked her into a scenario where she was placed on an altar. There was 13, 15, something like that, men standing around, and they ultimately ended up gang raping her. And then they used hot pokers and branding irons to just mangle her body up. She needed surgery afterwards, and she ultimately was covered and I hate to be so blatant about it, but she was covered in semen and ultimately could not figure out where she was. She was mostly aware, but somewhat drugged at the time. She was handcuffed, or her hands were tied, so she couldn't get anywhere, and all she could do was cry. Unfortunately, this is a regular event with these videos.
This is Charles Manson sick, disgusting. Women are really being tortured in these American streets?
When these women come out, they are absolutely traumatized. They don't know what normalcy looks like. They most of the time have never experienced it, depending on how long they've actually been in the trafficking scene. They may have been bred into this because they have a parent who groomed this in them from a very young age. So when they are groomed from a young age, they don't know anything different. Now, if they get into it later in life, if for some reason they were brought into it through a sibling or another set of circumstances, then the damage, the impact is different than that of a child who is brought into it from the very beginning.
So you're telling me these women are brainwashed?
They absolutely brainwashed. Depending on the level of trafficking and the level of circumstances and when it began, there is brainwashing involved. There are triggers that are set into place with elements of control, whether they're visual triggers, they have stimulus. Some of these women are electrocuted, they're drugged, they're continuously kept into a state of fear. So when they come out and they actually find freedom, they don't necessarily know what that looks like or feels like. Freedom can actually be more fearful than being in captivity because that's what they've known. So for them to understand that they have their own identity, that's actually exhausting, and often they don't know how to process that information, and yet they're hungry for it.
It seems like we need more resources, something to reach out to these women to make sure that they feel safe when they do come seek help.
Chances of them seeking help themselves is actually pretty slim. Usually, these young ladies or young girls, depending on the circumstances, they're actually caught in circumstances that are brought to the attention of the authorities. They're taken to police stations, or they're found in the streets and the police are involved. They're left in hotel rooms when they've served their purpose or done what they're supposed to do for that evening, weekend, or that period of season in their life. Then you have others that people in the community see that there's something not right. This is going on in the rural communities as well. So hospitals are involved now. Whenever there's an injured party that's brought in or is left on the side of the road that's obviously needing some sort of medical assistance, once the hospitals are involved, they get the opportunity to have one-on-one dialogues with these young ladies. And as a result of that, they can get them the help that they need.
I remember back in the old school days, they put these lost children on the back of milk cartons. Now today we have Amber Alert, billboard signs. What are parents doing to find these lost children?
Depending on the circumstances, whether it had been taken away through a set of, so there's the occult, that's the occultic side of things, where they're bringing people in and they're indoctrinating them into a certain belief system, or ceremonially bringing them into sexual rituals, and then they move them into trafficking. At some point, those parents, depending on where they are, they may or may not have contact with their children. You have the parents who are actually having children in order to traffic them. Generally, those parents are involved throughout the entire process until they're finally either sold off, aged out, or they're used up from the parents' perspective. And then you have those that have just come up missing in the streets. So you have those that are in the streets, they are runaways, they're picked up, they just disappear. Those are the ones a lot of times you see on the news, or they're not seen on the news, unfortunately, because there's so many of them that they can't all be captured by video. But those are the ones that just kind of disappear and you don't find anything of them for many years to come.
So you're telling me these parents are selling their own kids, their own flesh and blood?
And I know it personally that I've had several people tell me of cases in which their parents or they know of people who actually have said they've had children with the whole concept of making sure that they had income, and those children were their income. They were a commodity.
Selling these women to pay to play? Damn shame. Taking these women's lives and their innocence for profit.
There's evil. There's twisted out there. We're full. The streets are full, but it's not just the streets. It's the communities that we live in that look like they're the high-end houses. It's not just these run-down areas where people think, well, that's where the prostitutes are. No. And now you can have these multi-million-dollar homes, but you don't know what's going on behind the doors. Generally speaking, if there is a population and a demand for any type of sex, pornography, anything that's going to bring in money, and when people want to generate money, you go with where the need is. And the need and the demand has to do with sex. So whether they're drugged or they are somehow introduced into a method of believing this is their only way out, they'll perform. So because they want to make their captives happy, or they want it over with. They want it done. They want it finished.
So these women have been trained by these men to get it over with, so they can stay alive for that moment.
Yes, but it's not just men, it's women too. I mean, these are rituals that are going on. These are circumstances that are going on everywhere. So it's not just men, it's women as well. There's women who are aged out of the sex trafficking, and they actually are instructed to go out into the streets and find more to bring in to replace them. That becomes their role. They then fulfill the role of making sure that they mother these children or young ladies into and indoctrinate them into the sex trafficking industry. So now they have aged out, but brought in a whole nother generation.
So what efforts are being made to break this sex chain up?
There's awareness that's going up. There's just not enough of it because it's the number of women and children that are being indoctrinated, brought into these things. It's far greater than what the capacity of the police or the FBI or anybody else has available. So it's up to the people. And when the people can understand what's going on around them, they can be more aware. The problem is people don't want to get involved because when they get involved, all of a sudden they assume some responsibility over it. And we have to be responsible for our neighborhoods, whether you're rural, whether you're the cities. It doesn't matter whether you're in a multi-million-dollar home or a home that's fallen down around you. We have a responsibility to make sure if we see something happening, something doesn't feel right, you can't account for their time. They won't be straight with you. They can't look you in the face and tell you what's going on. You see brandings on them. These women are getting tattooed and branded with their owners. They're the person who is taking them as they're like animals, and they're not animals. These women have futures. And if these women could just know that they have futures, they would be able to step out. But they're so brainwashed into thinking that they can't do anything more, that they have to sit and where they're at now, that this is the end of the line for them. They don't make any movements. And oftentimes, if it's not something in the family that's going on, the captors will use the family by telling the young lady that they have being held captive that they'll go after the family. So they themselves that are being held captive are protecting the family by not speaking out.
So they're normalizing normal by the threats. People are keeping quiet. Families are being held hostage. Well, check this out. This is Blind City. If anyone is out there feeling scared, you're feeling not safe, you can contact us at blindcity314@gmail.com. blindcity314@gmail.com. Blind City. That's why we created this platform. Real life, real situations, real people.
A lot of the times they're showing in these strip clubs because it's a quick and easy way for that to be fulfilled. They're enticed with money, they're enticed with drugs, they're enticed with clothing, whatever that they think that they need. Men they're bringing these young ladies in. They're not stupid. They watch what their needs are, and they work very hard to fulfill them until they get them hooked. Once they're hooked and they're in these clubs, they're absolutely used. They're taken for granted in every way possible.
You're right. They're taken for granted. A lot of these women don't have their GED or a high school diploma. A lot of these women are using drugs. The pimps are supplying these drugs to keep the women happy inside these strip nightclubs. And a lot of these women come from a family cycle of prostitution.
They grew up in these circumstances. They grew up in the streets or seeing things off of the streets, and that's what they grow into. So, as I said, if we can give them something larger on the horizon, if they could recognize who they are and who they are in Jesus, who they are in themselves, be true to who they could be, instead of falling into patterns that come from the streets, they can go so much further in life. They have futures that they can expand upon, and they're not relegated to what some man tells them to do. Women are much more strong than they recognize, but whenever they're beat down in the streets, they see it in the streets, they don't know how much greater we can be.
Well, they can't be that greater because pimping is a big business now. It's just not in the strip nightclubs. Pimping has gone to the radio stations now. They play a lot of music that is degrading, especially in hip hop. Bitches and hoes. You hear that in almost every song. They're degrading women. They're not uplifting women. They're degrading women. That's what a pimp does.
Absolutely. Discernment is necessary on this. There's too many opportunities for people to be listening to those when there are other options out there. So being selective in how you are listening to the music or what you're watching on TV, we are responsible as human beings. Each individual is responsible for what we are seeing and hearing to the best of our ability. So if we can understand that we have to have discernment and we cannot buy into the populace. When we buy into the populace and what the society society says is okay and natural and acceptable, we fall into these negative patterns. But we are not to be conformed to the ways of this world. We're supposed to go beyond that. We're supposed to see more than that. We're supposed to experience life in a way that is holy and righteous and loving. But there's no unity. We are always fighting for power. We're fighting for something. Why can't we just be together? The reason why we can't be together is because there's propaganda out there like that. Now, I like the music myself, but I don't like it for words. I want to hear words that matter, words that change direction. I want to hear something that's going to uplift these women, and yet the men are drawn to the power.
The power, the money, the sex, controlling women through the radio, through the music, through pornography, through domestic relationships. Women, you gotta wake up!
If it's on TV, the computer, or the radio, if it has sound, it inspires it.
This is Pastor Rick, and you're listening to Blind City,
the podcast.
The views expressed on Blind City are to inspire and motivate people who are struggling through the dark times and searching for the true light.
Welcome back to Blind City. It's time for Church in the Streets with Pastor Rick. Pastor Rick, you just had the woman of faith. She's in the front lines dealing with the human trafficking. How do you feel about what's going on and what we heard on today's show?
I'm not just shocked. I'm appalled, first of all. And I think that we as a community of faith have a bigger responsibility than just to stay within the four walls and preach to those who are coming in there. These young women, and some of them are teenage, who are being used by men, it seems that they're being lured into this. And the lure is what they believe is going to make them happy or going to make them complete or going to fulfill their life dream or their desire. The problem is that they've never had a dream that came from their own dream. And because somebody else has given them a dream, they've bought in to whatever that dream is, whether it was probably their mother or it could have been a family member, a sister, or even their grandmother who've been in this profession for a long time, and that was the only representative of any kind of dream that they saw. And so all they had to attach their aspirations to was what they saw. What a terrible concept that is when all you see is something that's going to tear your life up.
Church in the Streets with Pastor Rick. I'm Langford Cunningham. Pastor Rick, what would you say to these pimps out here that are selling women for sexual acts?
I don't know if I could say that on the air, and as a man of faith, I don't know if I would say it. But here's how I would put it: if that was your mother, if that was your sister, if that was somebody who was related to you, would you do the same thing?
Pastor Rick, what message of hope can we give these women that's caught up in sex trafficking?
These girls, if they knew anything about the Bible, they would know that Jesus talked to prostitutes. Matter of fact, one of his closest disciples, Mary Magdalene, was a prostitute. He delivered prostitutes. And as a matter of fact, some of the folk had problems with him because he ate and drank dinner with people who were into prostitution. So there's a word out there to help to encourage these young girls. But if they don't know that this man we call Jesus can deliver them from that lifestyle, and somebody keeps telling them that that's not true, or nobody cares about them, that they are useless, that they're worthless, that they have no value. If they ever heard that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords hung out with people who were prostitutes, maybe they would say, he could love me that way too.
Church in the Streets with Pastor Rick. To my citizens within the Blind City community, social media has made us soft targets. We're so easy to go onto dating apps and meet new people, friends, followers we accept that we don't even know. Times have really changed. Back in the days, they told us not to ride with strangers. And today, we ride with strangers. Welcome to Blind City.
From small towns to big cities, human trafficking is a growing problem in the United States. If you or someone you know is in trouble, call us at 1-888-373-7888. That's 1-888-373-7888. Or contact us at help@humantrafficking.org.
Help us share the word about the podcast Blind City. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Blind City, the podcast, is produced and recorded at Clayton Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. The views expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of Clayton Studios or its affiliates.
Blind City. Yeah.
Track killer.
The legend.
Yeah, a lot of history behind this.
Ramrilla.
Yeah, I'm trying to reach out and connect with the youth. These rappers out here, they ain't telling the truth. God ain't blessing the trap, it's just a trap. So the blessing in that is zero. I'm the proof, so I'm blessing the booth. My soul is a mirror, my vision is clearer. No more making them quick decisions in error. Avoid the prisons and the stigma of the system that got us missing. But will they listen to me since I'm not from their era? They call me realer cause it don't get no realer. I'm from a city full of wolves and gorillas. The blind lead the blind, and only the strong can survive. So we gotta reach out to the youngsters and hope that they feel us.
Can they feel us? Can they really open their minds? Cause right now we got killers and shooters. The people in the community, you gotta stand up, baby. You gotta wake